destroyed them.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules of evidence are in something like that. Very possibly. They could.
I mean, seems like what we could start with is with, was it Bayless and the other fellow, that
Right.
if you could try to contact them and ask them, if they would be willing to
talk about it.
Yeah. And just say it's extremely confidential, isn't with any, that it would be confidential, and so on. Like that is just like a starting point there.
Right. Well, I will reach out in that direction and see what I can reach. And as soon as I get my bike back, I will take a little trip. Been kind of wanting to go for a ride anyway, so.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Like, do you think, is there any way that they could be, like, if you even reaching out to them might trigger anything in terms of?
Not from their end. If I'm being monitored, if I'm being passively, surveilled in some way, then maybe, but I don't know. There's so much going on that I would not think that too many resources would be dedicated to me, kind of just with everything that's going on. I doubt it would raise any flags.
Mm-hmm.
Not less. I could see potentially if I started going and trying to get my CPS reports and contacting Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida, trying to get the police reports from my childhood, I could see maybe that raising a red flag.
Yeah.
But as far as just me reaching out to my old Army buddies, I don't think so. I think I could probably communicate with them, see what they remember.
So my suggestion is that before you reach out to your old Army buddies, that you get the paperwork from the hospital first, because that's a very important starting point, just in case you reaching out to your buddies would in any way trigger anything. And you can travel there safely to and from and so on. Okay, so yeah, let's get the paperwork from the hospital, and then we can look at reaching out to the Army buddies afterwards. And then whatever of those copies, we'll just figure out how you can just photograph them. And I think with Proton Mail, there's something called Proton Drive, and there's like a certain amount of gigabytes of storage. In fact, I just uploaded one of the audio recordings in Proton Drive because I'm looking at how is most effective to get to the police officer once I go through those other audio recordings. And then on a positive, like the audio, how great, the audio recordings will be stored on a Victoria Police Department secure server. So that's something that's important. I feel much better about that, actually, as a starting point. So.
Okay.
And then I think now what the police officer said. Well, let's talk about some of those in terms of like the investigation. Is the sort of, from their perspective, they look and they say, okay, how do they know you're telling the truth? And I said, well, when you hear the audio recordings, you'll hopefully you can discern.
Right.
Some folks are different. Like now the police officers, got lots of experience, and I know the police officers' approach to hearing the audio files would be quite different than sometimes how they might look. So they're asking, well, where did I meet you? Those sort of questions. And I said, well, I offered to help. I tried to provide the right context. So in terms of, I know what sort of questions folks will ask. And so some of the folks, like something that in terms of documentation that helps in terms of with the police is that, that you were at the Army. Do you have like a document that says what years you're in service that you can send me that we can start compiling those?
Yeah, I got a DD-214 that They give you my years of service. Yeah, I can corroborate that like in the next few minutes as soon as I get off the phone.
Oh, sure, that's perfect, because then I can send, when I send a link to the audio files, I can send an email with the document, anything that we have that would help to provide context right now, even before she's listening to the audio files.
Yeah, I can upload my DD-214, my most current one, and it'll have both periods of service. It'll have all my schools, all my awards. It'll have everything. So, I don't know how familiar you are with the military, but whenever you ETS, whenever your term is up, they give you that document, and it's basically your entire career encapsulated into, mine's 2 pages long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have no problem sending that to you.
And she has relatives.
Ordinarily,
She, just to context, I was going to say she has relatives in the military, so she has some context in terms of military family. So
okay.
that's
The only thing I might redact off of that is my social security number, and I would only do that by putting like a little piece of paper or something where the social security number is.
Sure.
Just in case it gets passed around, I just don't want my social security number to have access, and I won't even redact the whole thing. I'll leave my last 4 or something on there.
Yeah, that would be perfect, because I think that's pretty standard in Canada on documents, just the last couple of digits.
Okay. I'll do that as soon as we get off the phone. I know right where that's at. That's in my go bag.
Awesome. Now, then another thing to ask in terms of with the military, when you were questioned, did they give you any documentation when you were questioned about the films? Do you have any notes from those years or anything?
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
I could just remember getting pulled into the office, and really the only question was, these movies are obviously older. How old were you when you did them? Is that you, and how old were you when you did them?
Yeah.
And I said, without seeing the movie, I couldn't tell you, but it started at 9 and ended at, I remember it starting out at about 9, and then it ended around 13. So about the same thing I told you. That hasn't changed over the years.
Okay.
It is possible, however, that 9 is just where I begin to remember it, and it is very possible that it was happening before then.
Mm-hmm.